Meanwhile, of course, the impact of load shedding is being felt far and wide. So currently we're on stage 3 for much of the day. Then from 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're kicking into stage 4, a more intense level of power cuts to deal with the evening peak. The Basic Education Department in KwaZulu-Natal says schools are really struggling under the weight of the rolling blackouts. University students, of course, also really concerned that the power cuts are going to put a strain on their exam preparations. Nqobile Madlala has been speaking to students and authorities today, and she joins us now. So, Nqobile, you've spoken to pupils, and let's not forget we're about less than 2 months, I think, from the matric finals. It's all systems go for these kids who have really borne the brunt of what happened during COVID-19 and the loss of school time. This is a very difficult time for students. What are they saying to you?
Well, Sally, what they're saying to me is that some of them are senior in high school, which means that they're now writing their trials and they are going to be preparing for their final exams, which will, of course, determine whether they get to university or not. So you can imagine the anxiety that they're going through, having to wonder what will happen next year. But now, to top it all, they can't give it their all because they're saying things like going to a library, you can get there and the lights could be out. They're saying that at home, they're struggling to get home and there is lights on, and the time when they're supposed to be studying, doing their homework, doing revision is really taken away from them because they find themselves with darker days and darker nights, and so they have to maximize in daylight for them to be able to push for these exams. But a lot of them just urging and saying that they would hope that the authorities will in fact consider them. So when we were spoken to the students, they were telling us that they're hoping that eNCA that will hear their cries and hear their plight. But more than anything, Sally, what's even worse now is that this is affecting their school on a daily basis. Some of them depend on food schemes that happens in school. But now they're saying that that doesn't always happen now because sometimes there's no electricity for them, for the food to be cooked. And some of these students, you'll remember that these food schemes are given to these students because some of their families cannot afford, which means they need to have some food. So to have no food at school and only to go back home to a dark day and there's no food is very difficult for them. And they're saying that this is affecting them mentally and emotionally. Let's listen in as they explain further.
Load shedding has a very bad toll on our education, especially at our grade 12s, because we usually study at nights, and most of the time at nights there's no electricity, so it's dark and we're unable to study. And whenever we get back home, we can't function, we can't study properly because it's dark, there's no electricity, we can't even eat food, we can't even eat well-nutrition food because there's no electricity. So this has a very detrimental toll on our lives.
Oh, gosh, and it's just not fair, is it? You know, you can see how hard these youngsters are trying to really get through so many challenges. Is the Department of Education offering a plan, a solution to help these youngsters?
Well, the solution at this point, Sally, is that they get generators and probably infrastructure that will provide alternative power, and that, of course, comes with budget. And what they're worried about is that those are some of the things that have not been budgeted for in a long time because such things, load shedding has not been part of their lives for so long. So these things now require that they look into what has been budgeted in the school and how they can provide for that. So the Department of Education in KwaZulu-Natal just complaining that a lot of schools are really struggling, so they're looking into squeezing some of that budgets to get generators, get alternatives, but it's not easy and it can't be a quick fix. But they're saying that at this point they're pinning their hopes to Nqobile, who is the Minister of Education, Basic Education, to perhaps continue those conversations with eNCA to help schools. They're hoping that what would happen now going forward is that eNCA could have a load shedding that is aligned to timetables in schools, because that would be much more easier than trying to squeeze really money at a place where there isn't, because they're still trying to survive from what has happened in the past. You remember KZN has had double blow from COVID to floods, and now they have to consider load shedding. So it's quite a difficult time. for the department and for everyone in the province. But let's listen in as Gwazi Mthethwa explains further.
At some point this year, our national minister was engaging with ESCOM to try and see if they're able to time their schedule in line with the exams timetable. So we are hoping that those discussions are going to give needed results so that load shedding doesn't affect us badly. We depend on solar panels and generators, but we are alive to this, to the reality that not all schools will be able to afford such. So we are greatly affected by load shedding. We are hoping that it will come to an end soon.
Yeah, let's hope that there's going to be some at least easing off of these extreme levels of power cuts. Thank you so much. Such an important story. That is our reporter in Durban, Nqobile Madlala.